Welcome to Tag! Today we're working on my girlfriend's 2000 Toyota Celica GTS, and we're replacing the belt tensioner. Now the reason we're replacing the belt tensioner is because the belt is slipping, so that's simple, so it must be replaced. Now we're going to replace the whole assembly because this little plastic wheel here is plastic. So the reason. Now if we can't actually get this bolt off because right here, if you look there, it is literally smack dab against the frame of the car. So if we can't get it off, then we'll just replace the actuator. Now the only seller says one unit here in the States, so we have to buy the whole unit. They'll just sell the actuator separate. But if we can't get it off, we'll just do the actuator. And you'll see very quickly if we can't, your version of the video will be like that. You just see it's like, oh shit, we can't do this. And then we'll just go to this. So let's get going and get this thing off. Pretty wash. Look at Derry too.
Whoa!
Tag, you're it. Righto. So the two bolts we need to take off is that one right there, as you can see. That holds the whole tension assembly in, and that one right there. That one is to the hydraulic actuator. Why don't you just use the alternator to tension the belt? I don't know. Maybe we're too lazy to tighten the belt. Hydraulic actuator. That's what we're using today. I'm not a fan of tensioners. I think they're stupid, but that's what we have. Right, so the materials we need is a 12mm socket, if we can actually get in there to take it off. If not, we have a 12mm wrench. It would have been very prudent of someone who has speed wrenches. Who is that? Oh yes, me! To actually bring them, but I didn't. You know, my fault. So if you have a 12mm speed wrench and a 17mm speed wrench, would be a good idea. We don't have that, so we have a 17mm crow's feet. Now, a speed wrench would work much better than the crow's feet, but the crow's feet is able to get in there with my brother's fancy tool here. It's a belt tensioner tool. It is actually meant for belt tensioners. It's quite nice. I like it. It worked good for this job. Very much good for this job. I should have remembered. I remember the crow's feet though, but I didn't remember the speed wrenches. So we'll need that, and we'll of course need our belt tensioner. And lastly, but not least, one of the most important things, a flashlight. Get in there. But even more important than the flashlight, beer. Today I'm drinking Moosehead, Canadian lager. Reminds me of Canada. Puts a tear in my eye. Beautiful country. So, shall we get going? Oh, it's so sweet. Makes me cry. Righto. So let's first loosen these up. Before we get in that, I'm going to take the crow's feet, line up as so. Give her a little tug. I'm going to hit your phone. And there we go. Nice and loose. Now I would suggest you take the actual belt off, but I'm first going to see if we can get that out. If we can't get that out, then we're going to give up on it. This is where the speed wrench would have come in handy, but I forgot it. We're almost right up against it there. I don't know how much more I can loosen this without hitting that wire. Especially to the point where we just might have to give up on that. Unfortunately. I have literally a millimeter left. Millimeter. I just don't see that. Yeah, it's still in there. There's no way. There's no way to get that off without taking up the engine. So we're just gonna go with the actuator. We'd have to take the mount off and lift the engine up quite a bit.
Why would they design something like that?
So you don't fix it yourself. That is the whole purpose of doing things like this. So you don't want to fix it yourself. Why do you think this specific part was not on the e-manuals online, except for how to take it off? The car is out of the engine when you do that. That's the problem. It may not look like it, but a lot of time has gone by. So we figured out we have to do the actuator. We're going to do the top bolt first on the actuator, so we can flip the actuator, the hydraulic actuator out of the way to get to the bottom bolt. Then we can put the actuator back on, hopefully not loosening up the belt too much, so we put the actuator back on after that, on the bottom, then put it on the top, and then bolt it all back together. It's only 2 bolts, but it's more complicated than you might think, because there's just no space. So let's take a quick swig. So let's get going. So this top bolt, possibly with this I can get in there a little bit. Wish I had my speed wrenches. My fault. My fault indeed. Okay, that was actually pretty good. It's all that slime. Oh wow, that was really good. Oh my gosh, that was loose. And before anyone says, well, that was the problem, that's not the problem. The actuator is supposed to be loose. Well, that's okay. I gotta like hold it. Oh. This bolt's out. We have to do the bottom one first. This top one's only a bolt. There, we gotta do that bottom one first. It's not going anywhere. I'd like to, though. It'd be a lot easier.
No, it's to the bottom one. Don't break it out.
Yeah, it's not gonna break it. Well, so after about, I don't know, 45 minutes or an hour of trying to get that bottom bolt off to get the hydraulic actuator off, I have decided that there's just no way with the frame in the way. So I'm going to take off some of these engine mounts from not the car, from the engine, but from the car, to attempt to lift it up. If I can successfully get them off and get it up, I'll show you what engine mounts took off to get it up. But so we're gonna do that and see how well that goes. I just need a little bit more clearance to get in there so we can get it off. So
Like an inch.
like an inch, half an inch. So let's give it a go. See if I can. Jesus. That's one. Oh, that came real easy. So we lifted up the engine. To get the engine up, see if we can get in there easier. I just don't think we can. Oh my gosh, I'm in there.
You're in? Hold on, let's see. He's in.
I guess lifting the engine up, but now how are we gonna get this broken? Because this is. Oh! It worked! It worked! I'm gonna get stuck though. I'm gonna have to use the thing eventually.
You know what we could do?
Loosen it up a little bit and then get this off. Loosen this up,
yeah.
Then pry that off. That's a good idea. Right, so we got the old belt hydraulic tensioner out. First what we had to do is we had to take the 3 bolts up here, loosen them up from the engine mount. Down there, that's part of the,
got it.
Then a bolt's right there, which is actually on the rubber part that holds it up. We loosen that one. Then we loosen a bolt right there for the engine mount. And then if you go look under here, underneath the car, I took a jack and a piece of wood, a nice long piece of wood across the oil pan. You gotta make sure your piece of wood will ruin your oil pan to lift the engine up. Then we had to get different parts here, and I do suggest this, it's worth doing. We bought an angled speed wrench. Now this is super nice because if you saw in there, we were able to get in, you'll see we were able to get in to the side there using the angled speed wrench. So it angles like that so you can get in there while you're doing the job. And for us, the angle was like that, so that's what we were doing for a while, which was really nice to get on the bolts. If we had a normal speed wrench, we still could have done it, we'd been going like this. Very little. So that really did help having an angle speed wrench. Got this from AutoZone. It's a Duralast product. Very good. Then we finally got it out. We did have to use a socket to get out first, and I'll redo the parts thing for what we needed. So we have this one out. We'll put the new one in. Hopefully it won't be too difficult. And once the new one's in, we'll get going, and it should be good. We shouldn't have squeaking anymore when we should go. So here's the new one. Let's get going. It should be easier when we move. So this is going to be a chore, so I'll just keep that on there. I have to get it down in there. And I'm just going to get started so I can. I'm going to get started so I can lift it up and over onto the other thing. I think that's the best way to do it. It's just my opinion, but we'll see. I think I'm actually going to go the other side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get started right in here. I'm going to have it, or maybe I can't go that way, can I? Maybe. So we had problems getting the hydraulic tensioner. I'm so frustrated. Right. So we didn't quite get to film putting the actuator or the hydraulic. Man, this is a tough job. I'm so out of it. We ended up using a C-clamp, and we compressed it. As you can see, we compressed it on both sides. A medium-sized C-clamp. That's important because it has to clear for the frame right here. We also moved this the clamp from this hose right here. We have to put that clamp back on. And then we compressed it down. And then what we did is we put it on top of that right there. Then we put the bolt down on the bottom. The bottom bolt we put on first before we put this bolt on, folks. So we slid that into the bearing, put the bottom bolt on, tighten it down as best we could, then put the top bolt on the best we could. And now we're going to remove the C-clamp, get the C-clamp out of here, and tighten it all down. But we know it won't go anywhere now because the bolts are tightened. It was a job. And I will show you in just a sec what exact parts we use. The only fancy part we actually used was this angled speed ratchet, which I do suggest getting at least a speed ratchet. A normal speed ratchet will work, but the angled make it a little faster for us. So let's get that C-clamp off and then tighten them up and finally be done with one of the worst jobs ever. Like, third worst job ever. Yeah. Number one is still the transmission of Pontiac Fiero. That's still the worst. Nothing's worse than that. Alright, let's do this. Let's take the C-clamp off. I'm so frustrated, I even took my glasses off. Yeah, lefty loosey. Get the C-clamp off here. Now, before we do that, we'll make sure the belt is up. Gotta make sure the belt's still on. The belt's still on, all correct. And the tensioner's right down there, so make sure it's still on the tensioner. It's still on the tensioner. Alright. Finally, C-clamp off. We'll get the C-clamp out. Okay. Now I'm just going to tighten up the bolts there, but it's a lot tighter than it was before, and we'll start the car and hopefully it stopped our squealing problem. Let's hope. Alright, let's get going on that. Tighten it all up. Right, so let's lower down the engine. Yeah. There. And take our wood block out. Tighten the engine mounts down, and then we'll start up. That is a 15 millimeters. I'm going to go through all the parts we actually used after this and show you what we did to make this son of a Get in there. Swear, if it squeaks, I'm going to flip. One. Here's two.
Break it, but.
Right, so, might be a, whatever. That was a job. That was just 2 bolts, and it took us, well, it's almost 9:30, 3 hours and 3.5 hours for 2 bolts. Yep, that's about right. So, I have a new list of things you need to use. The first thing, medium-sized C-clamp. Then you need a 12 millimeter wrench to get into the back bolt to loosen it up, or a 12 millimeter socket, but you can only go a little bit. Don't undo it with the socket, just get it loose, because after you get the bottom bolt loose, you will use a 12 millimeter speed wrench. We have an angled speed wrench, but a regular speed wrench will do the job. Don't go all the way out with the 12 millimeter socket, or else you'll get stuck. Just go a little bit just to loosen it up. After that, use a 12 millimeter speed wrench, or angled speed wrench as we have here. You can use either one. This might be a little easier, but a regular speed wrench will fit. Then you need to have a 15 millimeter socket with an extender to loosen up the 3 engine mounts you'll have to use to raise the engine to get back in there and to get the C-clamp in there, because you are hitting the frame, so you need to move it out of the way of the frame. Then you'll need a jack to lift the engine up, but you can't just jack with this because you're going to use the oil pan to lift the engine up, and if you did that you would break the oil pan. You need a piece of wood. As you can see, our piece of wood's been a little marked with the oil pan. Piece of wood is to put on the oil pan like that, lift it up so you don't break the oil pan. Now, don't lift it up too far. If you start to lift the car up a lot, it's going to raise a little bit, but if you move it a lot, probably too much. You don't want to wreck the oil pan. Yeah, that's all you need. You need that medium-sized C-clamp. So if you want to go to the hardware store and buy a bunch of different C-clamps, I suggest it. But since it took us 3.5 hours to do the job, we will filming, so you know it took a lifetime. But my suggestion is, if you have an extra $200, pay someone to do it. Yeah, that was too hard of a job for 2 bolts. Too bloody hard. So I'm Shane. That's Tristan. And
Tag, you're it.
Oh man, there might be a. It's like a revision of parts you need.
Here, I got you a beer.
Ever yet?
Right here.
That's empty.
Oh.
Who don't want an empty beer?
I don't know, you want an empty beer.
I don't want an empty beer.
You don't want an empty beer?
Oh.
You know what the funny part is? All that work and it didn't fix the problem.
It was not.
Still squeal.
It's only for a little bit now, so it's a little better, but not as much. Still, I don't know what it is. Could be the wheel on there. Maybe it's the wheel. I don't know.